This submitter was driving her Acura in Yonkers, New York when the driver of an unmarked van made an illegal U-turn across her lane. Unfortunately, the submitter's vehicle was totaled. The driver of the van then took off, turning this accident into a hit and run. The submitter contacted the police, but they had no luck deciphering the license plate number. If you recognize this white unmarked GMC Savannah or know who it belongs to, please contact us directly, and we'll pass the information along to the submitter. Matthew was waiting to turn right at a traffic light when a Tesla Model 3 pulled up behind him in the next lane over, a lane that's only allowed to go straight through the intersection. When the light turned green, the Tesla driver tried to force their way into Matthew's lane, but he held his position, risking the safety of his 1997 Toyota Corolla. The Tesla driver just went ahead and turned anyway, zooming off once they'd completed their illegal maneuver. Matthew guesses they didn't think they should have to wait in line like everybody else. Come on, man! Nate was driving his Ford F-150 Raptor on I-405 when he noticed a Chevy Silverado tailgating a Prius in a lane to his right. Nate moved over to make room for merging traffic, even though they already had their own lane, but this wasn't enough for the move the Silverado driver had planned. The Silverado proceeded to cut across the entire highway, nearly hitting Nate's truck in the process. Fortunately, Nate was paying better attention than the Chevy driver was. Robert was headed home in his Volkswagen Golf Plus after picking up his mother from work. Suddenly, the driver of a Ford Focus ran a stop sign. Robert expertly maneuvered between the cars parked on either side of the street, managing to only scratch one of them. Unfortunately, his car was totaled. Even worse, Robert's mother had to receive medical treatment for almost a month. He also had joint pain from yanking so hard on the steering wheel. The Focus driver's insurance provider went bankrupt, and it took almost 8 months for Robert to get a settlement of a little over $6,000 US. He'd paid over $8,000 US for the car and another $2,000 US to fix the engine, so he feels like the insurance company didn't give him what he was owed. Still, he's glad the car protected them both from further injury. Dylan was driving his Nissan Titan when he saw the driver of a black car attempt an illegal U-turn, crashing into a red car and sending it across the highway toward Dylan. Dylan was able to evade the oncoming car, which is a good thing since he was pulling a camper trailer at the time. Yang was driving his Honda Insight when he noticed a silver Hyundai Veloster speed past him. As the Veloster passed a black Hyundai, the black car drifted to the right, causing the Veloster to swerve to avoid it. The Veloster hit the other car, sending it careening into a light pole. Yang checked on the drivers and they were both okay. He emailed his dashcam footage to the police officer who investigated the accident, but he never heard back. Daniel was driving his Chevy Cruze in Vancouver, British Columbia when a pickup truck started to turn in front of him as he was driving through an intersection. Both drivers slammed on their brakes, and Daniel was able to swerve around the truck at the last second, but this was definitely a close call. Daniel isn't sure who would have been at fault if they'd collided. Let us know what you think in a comment. Keep in mind that he'd already entered the intersection when the light turned yellow. Ishmael was driving in Chicago one night when the driver of an SUV tried to cut around traffic by making his own lane, but it didn't work out the way he'd hoped. The SUV driver misjudged the distance and slammed into a parked Ford Explorer. Ishmael has seen this driver before, speeding down the same street and even passing traffic using the oncoming lane. Michael had just gotten coffee from a local convenience store. When he left the parking lot, he ended up behind a Buick Century. While Michael was looking to the left to check for traffic, the Buick driver stopped at a yield sign for no reason. He hit the Buick at about 20 miles per hour, denting the rear bumper cover and taking out his own front bumper cover and headlight. The Buick driver told him at the time that he wasn't injured. Later, the Buick driver claimed he was injured and tried suing Michael for $500,000 in damages. His insurance provider eventually settled with him for $15,000 to avoid further litigation. Desh was exiting a gas station in Malaysia when a truck driver slammed into the front of his car. The truck driver claimed he couldn't see Desh's car, which is weird considering how bright his LED headlights are. Desh called the police, and the truck driver was found to be at fault thanks to the dashcam footage. Desh is now waiting for his car to be repaired. Jonathan was driving his Mazda Miata in a rainstorm when he watched another driver suddenly swerve into the oncoming lane. The other driver barely missed colliding with an oncoming car. Jonathan followed him for several more miles and watched him drive very slowly for a while before accelerating up to 80 miles per hour. He said it was like watching an NPC driving in Grand Theft Auto. What do you think was going on? Brian was driving in a Minnesota blizzard when he watched a FedEx semi-truck jackknife and hit a merging van. Brian didn't even notice the van getting hit until he watched his dashcam footage. So that's why my package delivery was late. This submitter was on a racetrack in Norway when he encountered a crash on the track after a blind corner. The submitter didn't have time to stop after seeing the yellow flag and hit a flipped Ford Focus with his Opel Vectra. Fortunately, the submitter's car was mostly okay, and all he had to do was straighten the hood and replace the hood pins. Thanks to their safety equipment, none of the drivers were injured. It was Abdul's last night in Russia when he witnessed another driver rear-end the car in front of them. Debris from the accident scratched Abdul's rental car, a Ford Focus, but thankfully, he wasn't harmed. Joshua was driving down the back roads at about 11 p.m. when he witnessed a pickup truck running from the cops. Joshua barely got out of the way in time for the fleeing fugitive to fly by fast, flouting the following fuzz. Alex was driving his GMC Sierra Denali when the driver of a Chevy Cobalt, who couldn't see around Alex's truck, decided to turn across traffic anyway. The Chevy driver was neither licensed nor insured, and police found them at fault without even watching Alex's dashcam footage. As far as Alex could tell, nobody was seriously injured. Mach and Cheese was driving with his son in his Ford Mustang Mach-E GT when the driver of a Toyota Camry tried to run a red light and turn across 5 lanes of traffic.
Whoa!
Mach said since there was no accident, they were satisfied.
That is going to be on Wham Baam's dash cam stuff, big time.
Dustin was driving with his family in his Ford F-250 when they witnessed a SpaceX launch in the distance. Check out their reaction when they realize what they're watching.
What is that?
A red balloon?
That's a rocket. Everybody looks like a rocket. That's a rocket.
Oh, why ain't somebody taking pictures?
I'm working on it.
Good spot, guys. That was the Starlink Group 48 launch from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Remember to subscribe, new video every Friday.